I want to clearly answer this one question so many people have. Why, as children of God, we still have to go through so much? If Jesus died for us, if we've been redeemed, been adopted, why the enemy just freely still get to have his way with us? If Jesus is king and we're supposed to be his bride, why when I look at this situation from a chessboard standpoint, we certainly don't feel like the queen. We don't even feel like we have the power a rook, knight, or bishop hold. We feel like pawns, worthless sacrifices. Why he can't just come and save us if we belong to him? That, my sisters and brothers, is because a transition has to happen. Jesus is righteous, meaning he followed the will of God. Y'all remember in Matthew 5:17 when he said, I didn't come to change or abolish the law. I just came to fulfill it. He was basically saying, y'all can keep y'all law. Y'all can nail it to a billboard if you want to. However, I'm just here to die for those of my people who don't have the capacity to keep it. So in the end, when it's time for me to rule, they'll be saved. It's not his time yet, y'all. His return is not yet here. The transition hasn't happened. And even though he don't seem to be here with us physically, he left Holy Spirit with us to keep us rooted in his truth until it's time for him to permanently reign without the attacks of the enemy. And until that great and dreadful day, the enemy gonna still try to take us out. In 1 Samuel, when God announced that David would be king, what did the first king do? Saul was still trying to take David out, despite God's decree. Saul knew his time was almost up, just like the enemy know his time is almost up. And being that Isaiah 55:11 says, so shall my word be that goes forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void. Like he spoke David to be king. And he spoke that Jesus would be king in the beginning. In Genesis 3:15, God told the serpent, you gonna bruise the heel of man, but the seed of the woman gonna crush your head. That was God's decree. And being that God spoke it, it's gonna come to pass because his word don't return to him void. Jesus could easily come and slay the enemy, but how could we call him righteous if he were to move outside the will of God from trying to submit to our own basic understanding? And that same goes with how David responded to Saul. David could have easily slew Saul while he was sleeping in his tent, but he decided not to break the rule when it pertains to having the heart of God. He decided to do things justly and fair. He knew he was called to reign, and he decided to receive his crown by simply flowing in submission to the will of God. The enemy is still able to set traps, able to distract and discourage us because he's only been indicted, not yet sentenced. John 16:11 say, judgment will come because the ruler of this world has already been judged. Ruler as in Satan. He's like a criminal waiting on his last trial hearing. Like how criminals at that time learn how much time they gotta serve. But until it get to that point, a lot of people be free on bond, just like the enemy free to do whatever he want until the judge locks him in a cell, until he's eternally bound in the pits of hell. I know some days it feel like God don't care, but that's only because he's righteous, does things in decency and in order. Jesus is always in alignment with the will of God. Same way Saul fell on his own sword before David was crowned is the same way the enemy is gonna have to deal with the heat of his own fire when Jesus returns to reign. So y'all be blessed.